everybody, to Talk of the Now podcast. This is Gene, and I've got Jason today. Jason, how's your week been?
Been pretty good. Been pretty good. Yeah, just working and living.
Well, today we are back to do another round of favorite 80s movies. This time, my turn. And we're going to go through my top 20
That's
80s
right.
movies. And
All
have
right.
you, before we get started, have you had any adjustments or anything you want to make to yours from last time?
No, I'm gonna stick with the list, even though there were some that I probably could have put on. I thought, well, that was pretty good for top of my head kind of list. So
Stick to your guns. That's all right. Yeah.
yeah,
I've got that list written down in the living room, I think. But anyway.
yeah, I'm gonna write yours down as you tell me to. So,
Oh, that's fine.
yeah.
I am I implore you.
Oh, I'm floor away, sir.
I encourage that. Okay, we'll start with my honorable mentions, or what I would like to call. We get right to it. Popcorn flicks. These are like things that I just say. They may not be the greatest. Some of them might be in some minds the greatest, but these are movies that I think will, they'll be entertaining. And a lot of these almost made my list, but just at the end of the day didn't quite make my list.
Right.
I mean, like you said before, it's hard to choose a favorite in
It
some
is.
of these. And a lot of them just, I mean, they could really be replaced. But anyway, Glory is on that list.
Hang on. What are we at? What number?
Oh, this is just honorable mentions.
How
No
many honorable mentions
order.
do you have, Gene?
Oh, several. Probably 8 to 10.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to
These are
make
just
a
kind
list.
of. I'm just running through a list here. These are just like these could have made the list easily, but I would also recommend to these people, maybe if you're a 20-year-old and you're wanting to go through some 80s movies, or
All
you
right, so
never
Glory.
watched 80s movies. Glory, The Money Pit.
All right, hang on. Don't go so
Great
fast.
movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a
Princess
good one.
Bride, which you had on your list.
Oh, wow. Only on honorable mention, huh?
It came close. I mean, honestly, it did.
I know.
Ferris Bueller is on that list as well, which is one of my favorite comedies, but it's definitely on the honorable mention list. Another one that's again hard to like. This movie to me, I think back to some of these movies, and I think that they're just movies that I personally grew up with and liked as a teenager or whatever, and so they kind of had a
Yeah.
warm place in the heart, if you will. They may not necessarily be a great movie, but Fletch comes to mind in that regard.
Wow.
I don't know
Fletch is only on your honorable mention. Wow.
I don't know if anybody would love Fletch, your average person today, but it just, for me, it had so many one-liners. And my sister had an ex-boyfriend back in the '90s, and we used to quote that movie back and forth to each other. And
It is all ball bearings these days, Gene.
yeah, it still has some of the best. Anyway, Dead Poet Society is on that list.
Dang, I totally missed that one. Okay.
Footloose is on that list, and Footloose to me is just one of those movies. It's a weird movie because to me it's kind of brainless, yet it also kind of makes you think. You kind of think, hey, how far can you take blue laws? How far can you take laws that do something like, oh, I don't know, ban dancing?
Yeah.
And it also just has some stupid stuff, but it's a fun, entertaining movie. Anyway, here's another movie that came close to the list. This movie, I think, can't decide if it wants to be a serious movie or a comedy, so I didn't make my list, but it is one of my favorite kind of movies, Amadeus.
Wow. Okay. All right.
If you've never seen Amadeus, I know you have, but
yeah,
it's an interesting movie. It's very, it's kind of, what's the word? Melancholy, maybe? I don't know. But at times,
that's actually a good word. Yeah, it's a good word for it.
It's kind of funny at times and kind of gregarious. It's just kind of crazy. And it's based off a play, which I didn't know. I almost put this movie in as my cult following in the top 20, which I just didn't at the end of the day. I don't think I have a cult following movie in my top 20. I do kind of have one, but Dune is one of my favorite movies.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if favorite's a word, but it's up there for me. And it's just, I think it's because I really like, and I'm not even really big into David Lynch that much, but the way that he filmed the movie, I think he had a lot of great ambition to it. And
Right.
when you kind of look into the lore of that movie and how much effort was put into it and how much time was put into it, and at the end of the day, it didn't turn out like it's supposed to. It's kind of an interesting background study, I think, if you ever look into Dune. And the new one that came out, by the way, I do like pretty good. It's not bad. Part 2 is coming out this year as well. It's 2-part, by the way. Did you see that, Jason?
No.
Okay. Fox and the Hound is my animation one that almost made it, but it's a good movie. It's a funny, good movie from Disney from the early 80s.
Yeah, I didn't realize. You forgot that they released that one in the 80s.
And lastly, my honorable mention is Top Gun. If you'd asked me in 1987, I'd probably say it's one of my favorites, but I ended up taking it off.
Just to let you know, that's 12 honorable mentions.
Oh my gosh, way more than 8. Okay, so honorable mentions. All right, so I'm going to try to share my screen here for my top 20.
Yeah,
see how disastrous.
I can't see you, so.
Oh yeah, hold on.
Yeah. You might be able to see on the recording. It's just my computer may not be able to see.
Oh, okay. Well, then I will say what they are as I go through. Okay, so we go back to here. We're going to share screen. Can you any chance you can see this? Let me know, Jason.
I can't, but again, that might be my technology issue. Oh,
okay.
Hang on. Something's happening. Something is happening. Oh. You're still there, right?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, it's sharing a screen, but there's nothing on it. So,
well, my first top 20 movie, which I think it will be in the recording,
right,
is Mr. Mom, number 20.
Mr. Mom. Okay, good.
And to me, it's one of the funniest movies. I saw that as a kid with my parents, and I've always just another good one-liner movie that just cracks me up. Michael Keaton, one of his funniest movies, I think. Number 19, we have Robert Redford in The Natural. As a baseball guy growing up, it's just, and again, this is one of some of these, this one probably could have gone in or out of the honorable mentions. To me, a lot of these 80s movies are weird because they have parts in them where I'm like, they should have rewritten that or made it shorter or just threw it out altogether. And to me, The Natural has 2 or 3 of those kind of scenes in them where they're not even necessary. But it's hard to beat the home run scene where he's just hits the home run and goes around the bases. All right, next up is 18. We have Willow.
All right, one that was on my list. Yeah, okay.
Yep, one in Jason's list. Good old Willow.
Yep, good fantasy movie.
Once again, Val Kilmer, he makes the movie interesting. At the beginning of the movie, it kind of just goes, and then when he finds Val Kilmer, you're like, who's this guy? And then as that scene unfolds, to me, you're just sort of like, okay, this guy is not just... To me, when you first see that scene, you're like, this is going to last 5 minutes, and we'll be rid of this guy. And the guy ends up taking a huge part in the movie. All right, now I'm on are we on 18?
No, 17 now.
17, we have Driving Miss Daisy. And I tell you why I like this movie. Morgan Freeman. He just easily makes the movie, but just the way that this movie, I don't know, it just warms the heart, I guess.
Yep.
I don't know. It's a good movie. Glory was on my honorable mention, so I probably could have swapped that out with this one. Again, Morgan Freeman just helps make Glory such a good movie. Number 16, Field of Dreams, my next baseball movie. And again, I go back to what I said about 80s movies. There are about 2 or 3 scenes in Field of Dreams that could have probably been rewritten or even thrown out that aren't even necessary.
Yeah.
Or just, this is sort of a critique of Mr. Costner. Don't get me wrong. Love Kevin Costner as an actor.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think he may overdo it in some of these older movies he did, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it.
But I don't know. I'm not a professional actor. He's worth millions. But I do love Field of Dreams. It's a fun movie, especially when he takes the James Earl Jones character to the Boston Red Sox game. It's one of my favorite scenes. Next movie we have is The Goonies. Which I don't know.
Right.
Did you have that movie in yours?
Yep, I did.
Okay. Goonies is just. I gotta say, The Goonies I would not put as one of my favorite, but I think that if you had if somebody says, "Oh yeah, Stranger Things," it really captures the '80s or whatever.
Yeah.
If you watch Goonies, not only was it made in the '80s, but it really captures a lot of just how youth was back in the '80s.
Yep. Yep.
In my opinion, especially
Agreed.
just everything from the little things that they did. Who was that? Was that Robert Zemeckis? I can't remember. I don't remember.
Hang on one second. I will answer that question really quick for you. Just hold please. Hang on one second.
It's sort. I mean, honestly, it's kind of like a Bad News Bears goes on a treasure hunt in a way, without the coach.
Right. That's Richard Donner. I should have known that. Richard Donner. Yes.
Richard Donner.
Yeah. As in Superman fame.
And that was who's the star? Was it Sean Astin?
Astin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh Brolin. Yeah. Jeff Cohen.
Would have never known that was Sean Astin until like 30 years later, and I was like, wait a minute, that was Sean Astin that played him?
Oh yeah, that's clearly Sean Astin. Yeah. Corey Feldman was obviously in that one too. His mouth. Yep. Yep. Good stuff.
All right, what am I on? 14?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Star Trek: The Voyage Home.
The fourth movie. Yes.
Yep. To me, I remember liking it in the late 80s, early 90s, and to this day, I watched it about a year ago. I need to go through all these and watch them again just to confirm my list. But I always thought that it was just one of the most fun movies to watch, if you will. I just really enjoyed it.
I would say it's probably the best of all the Star Trek movies. I agree.
Yeah, totally. Next on the list is Summer Rental with John Candy. I think we're at 13.
Yep.
And to me, if you haven't seen that movie, I don't know, that might have been the best typecast movie for John Candy ever made. I don't know. It was that and Uncle Buck, maybe. It was just the way he's everything from the drive down to the best part might be when he realizes that total strangers are hanging out in his his beach cabin, and he just decides to get rid of all of them.
Yeah, all right, next on. That is a Rob Reiner movie, yes. Or Carl Reiner, sorry.
Carl Reiner. Next down on the list, Hoosiers.
Yeah.
Which Hoosiers is kind of a weird movie in some ways, because you can't tell if it's going to end sad or happy, or you can't tell if this is, I don't know. Might have been. You may disagree, but it might have been Gene Hackman's best movie, in my opinion. One of his best. Not that I'm a huge Gene Hackman fan as far as his movies go, but
yeah,
he plays a good, confident character.
Yeah, I liked him in what's it called, Cloak and Dagger. That was the one I liked him in. Yeah.
So yeah, I'd put Stop Making Sense up there just because it's become one of my favorite movies.
Yeah. Talking Heads, kind of love it.
Yeah. All right, where are we?
Number 10, top 10 now.
Number 10, we have, I'm trying to share my screen correctly here.
Oh, now I can see it. All right, cool.
A Christmas Story.
Oh.
Which, the bad parts are kind of bad, but I really like the good parts. How about that? We'll go with that. And it's more, holiday movies are weird for me because a lot of times they're sort of timeless. So, yes, it's an 80s movie, but it's not even the time period is not even the 80s. But
you got a few of those on here, so yeah.
Yeah. I do have a lot of time period ones. All right, I don't know what number I'm on.
Number 9 now.
Number 9. We have Big, Tom Hanks.
Good. That's a good one.
Was that on your list?
I think it was, yes.
Okay.
Or may have, maybe not. No, it was. Yeah.
I think my favorite line in that movie to this day is when he starts at that computer company and he's working so fast, and John Lovitz looks over and he goes, "Hey, what are you trying to do? Get us all fired?"
No, I know.
You gotta slow down. But it's a fun movie. It's a real fun movie.
No, it is not on my list, actually. No.
Okay. All right. So this part, next movie is Return of the Jedi.
Good one.
Star Wars Return of the Jedi. And I think a lot of that has to do with nostalgia, just because I liked it so much as a kid, and I saw it in the movie theater as the first Star Wars movie I saw in the theater, and I just always kind of liked the story as a kid. Now when I look back on the story, it's not as great as I remember it being, but still fun, good story.
I'd say it's pretty good, actually.
And I compare to the first two, I should say, not necessarily that it's a bad story. It's just
obviously the movie all around, I think, was obviously better produced because it was, a few years later. But
yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right, the next movie we have Chariots of Fire.
Okay, another period piece.
Yep, another period piece. And I've just always liked the story in it. Again, this movie 20 years ago, it might not have been in my top 20.
Right.
But after I saw it a few times, I was just very inspiring movie.
Nice.
And they don't make movies much like this anymore, I don't think. But still a good one. Okay, my next movie is going to be Crocodile Dundee.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
Now, I don't have many comedies in this top 20, but Crocodile Dundee is definitely up there for me.
Yeah, definitely very 80s too. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's one of the best fish out of water movies.
Yep.
Ever made. I mean, just the fact that she goes down to Australia, and you're like, well, everything you expect happens to the girl because she's a New Yorker going to Australia. Then they sort of twist it on you, and you're like, whoa, they're taking him back to New York. Right. And that's where you really turns it up. All right, next movie.
It's two fish out of water movies. Yes.
That's true. You're right. Okay, so my number 4?
5.
Number 5. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And I really think that had it not been for Sean Connery, this would not be on the list, because I think that he, with Harrison Ford, just makes it such a fun movie.
Yep, I agree. That pairing was pretty ingenious.
And the writing, of course, and Steven Spielberg's direction and all that stuff. But it's hard to make a really great sequel, and he pulled it off on that one.
Yeah.
Next on the list we have, of course, Back to the Future.
Robert Zemeckis classic.
Yep.
Almost didn't get made. Yes.
And I was asking around or looking around the other night, and they made a 30th anniversary DVD set, which I may buy. I don't have it on DVD yet.
I do. I've got it.
Oh, really? Is that the one that has even the animation cartoons on it?
Yes, I believe so.
Is it in a white case? Do you remember? Okay.
No, wait. No, mine's not. Never mind. Mine's just the 30th anniversary, just pack. So, yeah, just the movies, yeah.
And I know one of them had like the Back to the Future ride. Kind of an extra thing on it, which I actually did at Universal before they closed that ride.
Yep.
So, all right, next on the list.
Number 3, top 3 here. Here's your
podium.
Number
3 is, I'm repeating myself in some ways, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
I just love the story. It's just a fun story. It's just a fun adventure movie. Like, I don't know if there's a better popcorn flick, basically. Like a movie that you just kind of have fun watching.
Right, Raiders is on mine. That's my number 9. So yeah.
So, and it might be, as much as I like Han Solo, it might be Harrison Ford's best movie. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, number 2.
Yep.
My number 2.
Number 2.
Okay, for some reason I thought I was on 1. Number 2. Wait, no, that was number 2. Number 1 is Empire Strikes Back. I'm sorry.
What was number 3?
Number 3. You know what? I actually have my list here. I'll share my list. Number 3 was Back to the Future. Can you see my list here?
You got off one number.
I did. Okay.
Yeah, you're missing one.
20 I had Mr. Mom. 19 The Natural. 18 Willow. 17 Driving Miss Daisy. 16 Field of Dreams. 15. Oh, sorry. I missed 15. My bad.
Right.
It is The Secret of NIMH.
Oh man.
Sorry, folks, I totally missed that.
All right, I got to redo my list here.
The Secret of NIMH is one of my favorite movies.
Yep.
It's a early '80s movie, basically about some mice that live in a farm, live on a farm, and they have their whole society and everything. And it was written actually by a guy, I believe it was John Booth, might be the name. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that.
Don
Bluth.
Yeah.
Don Bluth, thank you. He and a couple of other guys that had left Disney Animation decided to make their own couple of feature films.
Yeah.
And this was, I think, may have been the first one, if not one of the first. And
because they also did American Tail. Movies like that.
They were really excellent, great movies. I mean, they're very Disney-like, but not. They're just different.
Right. You can definitely tell the animation is different. Yeah.
So sorry I missed that one.
All right, hang on one second. Let me do.
We'll start all over. I'll cut this off and we'll record.
Let me do my renumbering here, Gene. So number 3 was Back to the Future. Number 2 is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right.
So that means your big fat number 1
is Empire Strikes Back.
Again.
There we go.
Okay.
Another Star Wars movie, and I feel bad that I had to do that, but I kept thinking about it, and I was like, I've got to stay with what I think is my favorite.
Oh yeah, it's your list. It's okay, Gene. It's okay if it's wrong. It's your list.
I know the whole trilogy thing. I mean, I would hate it if somebody said, "Gene, what's your favorite?" This isn't true, but what if your favorite 3 movies are Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, Return of the King? But I had to give credit where credit was due in my own mind, and that's where I put those. So
all right.
There you go. Those are my top 20 movies. What do you think, Jason? You got any critiques or likes or anything?
Well, hold on, folks. You ready for this ride? Okay. No. All right. Let's start with your honorable mentions. Top Gun. I get it. Kind of overdone in most people's lists. I understand why it's an honorable mention. Not quite a The Fox and the Hound. Again, with animated movies, I'm like, they are what they are. Glory, your first of the period pieces. So it's an 80s movie, but it's not really it's not necessarily about 80s stuff. So still made in the 80s, still counts.
That's true, yeah.
But you can watch it now. It could be made now, the same thing. The Money Pit, classic. Princess Bride. I mean, whatever, Gene.
Hey, period piece, by the way.
Whatever, Gene. It's one of the best. Anyway,
it could have been easily in my top 20.
I'm just kidding.
Change that out with whatever.
It kind of hurts my heart you didn't put a John Hughes movie in your top 20 there.
Well, if it helps, Princess Bride and Driving Miss Daisy were kind of on
yeah.
I sort of just threw it against the wall to see what sticks.
I'm just saying, your Ferris Bueller being an honorable mention. All right. God forgives everybody, Gene. I'm just joking.
I don't know. The way they tortured that Ferrari, I just don't know if I could put that in top 20.
It actually wasn't really a Ferrari in the filming, by the way.
That's true.
Let's see.
Way to spoil it, Jason.
Yeah, sorry. Even the one they were driving around was not a Ferrari. Yes, it was actually a kit car made to look like a Ferrari. So let's see. And Fletch, I thought you were a bigger fan of that movie than you are. Let's see. Dead Poet Society. I mean, Captain, My Captain. That one was a classic. I always forget it was an 80s movie. Footloose. Piece. Yeah, Footloose. I get it. That one's kind of overdone. Amadeus, that was a really good choice. I like the even mention of that movie. That's kind of cool.
Yet another period piece.
And Dune, a fantasy film. I couldn't get through 10 minutes of it.
I understand.
It was just like, I just didn't get it. It was like it was trying to be Star Wars, but it wasn't. That's just my opinion. I get it. I understand it's,
Yeah. Well,
I think half the problem was is where I was watching it when I was younger. It was the 3 hour version.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, shoot me now.
Well, I think personally that everybody should have some movies in their list that are sort of like people look at them sideways and they're like, "You like that
Yeah.
movie?"
Oh
And I
yeah.
think that Dune is kind of one of mine.
All right. So your top 20, Mr. Mom. I mean, Michael Keaton. Can't go wrong with that one. There's so many Michael Keaton movies that you just kind of had to pick one. And Mr. Mom's a good one.
Yeah, I didn't put Batman in there. That could have been a honorable mention.
Yeah, probably, Batman and Batman Returns are the two best to me. Like I said last week. The Natural. I get people's obsession with this movie. It irritates me because it's a sports movie that uses fake teams. I'm like, I don't like that. Be the Yankees, be the Red Sox, be, whatever. Quit making fictional teams and using like real looking stadiums and existing in a time that we know there are real teams. I don't like that. Kind of like the football movie from the late 90s. What was it? Any Given Sunday. Same thing. Like,
yeah,
really? You're playing in Texas Stadium. We know it's supposed to be the Dallas Cowboys. Anyway.
Yeah, but the Natural for me is just sort of like, at the end of the day, the good outweighed the bad. I understand like the bad parts of it and things that people don't like about it. It was kind of, and by the way, there's an honorable mention that I should mention that didn't make the list.
Honorably, yeah.
Like you said, there could be 100.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't put Real Genius on honorable mentions. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
The 8 Men Out was one of my favorite movies when I was a young baseball card collector.
That one by the way, is one of my more favorite of the baseball movies. Yes, I agree.
Great John Cusack movie.
Oh yeah. See, Willow, I had that on my list. I got no complaints. Driving Miss Daisy, that was a good ad. I forget about that movie and it's just a good movie, all around just good movie. Again, a period.
It's a good wholesome movie.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, even in the 80s was rare, Field of Dreams. I'm kind of with you on the overacting part, and not that Kevin Costner would listen to our podcast, but I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry, John Dutton. I like you in certain roles, but that one just seemed a little forced to me. I get its importance in cinematic flair, but crazy thing happens in corn. Children, aliens, baseball players, everything comes out of corn.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did that movie put Ray Liotta on the map, so to speak, as an actor?
Whatchamacallit? Mafia movie, Goodfellas did.
Okay, well, I thought Goodfellas might have been after that movie.
It may have been. Yeah. I don't know.
Anyway.
All right, so your number 15 ad.
If I may, though, as a baseball fan, the biggest problem I had with that movie, honestly, is that they used nobody that was like Shoeless Joe Jackson to play. I mean, Ray Liotta was okay he was okay in the part, but Shoeless Joe Jackson was a Southerner from Greenville, South Carolina,
right?
And I'm pretty sure in the movie he was batting right-handed and he was a left-handed batter. So there you go.
Yeah, I agree. It was kind of careless. A careless portrayal is what you would call that.
But James Earl Jones, of course, you put him in a movie, it's
yeah. I mean,
just
the golden voice of all golden voices.
Like putting Harrison Ford in a movie. Okay, it'll sell some tickets.
So Secret of NIMH, that was a good one. A very dark movie.
It does have some darkness, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a dark movie. It's not as dark as Watership Down. Watership Down was another dark one that they made out of a book that they turned into a movie. That's darker. So yeah, I like the choice of Secret of NIMH. That was a good one. Let's see, The Goonies. I mean, I had it on my list. You can't go wrong with and kids hanging out and going on an adventure movie. Star Trek 4, like I said, I think the best of all the Star Trek movies.
Easily, I believe.
Now, there are some that'll argue it was Wrath of Khan, but I'm like, I like Star Trek 4 because it was just, to me, more positive.
Yeah. To me, they did a good job of sort of giving a picture of what the 80s were like in that movie, probably unintentionally.
Well, yeah, because it was just made in the 80s. It was just current time. Summer Rental. I'd kind of forgotten about that one. That was a good one. Hadn't seen it in a long time. Hoosiers, I've just never been a fan of. Maybe because I'm not a basketball guy.
Right.
But some of the sports movies, I get the obsession with it, and it's a great story. But I'm kind of like you, with Gene Hackman. I can take him or leave him. To me, Gene Hackman is, the Odessa File, that movie, that kind of thing. So yeah, that one stopped making sense. Obviously, I mean, I like Talking Heads. That's a good one. It's a documentary. Let's see, Christmas Story. Can't stand it. I've never been able to, and I know if Scott's going to listen to this,
which I didn't know that till recently. That's funny.
Scott's going to listen to this and kill me because he loves it. It's overplayed. It's just kind of it's depressing.
I mean, to your credit, it is overplayed.
It's overplayed. It's depressing. It's kind of dirty, like the whole town kind of thing. It's just dirty. I don't know what it's just. I get the movie, not dirty like sinful, but like dirty, like dingy. Like all the colors are muted in the movie. It's not. If you notice that the color palette for that movie is really muted. Again, that's just from a cinematic point of view and from a frustrated. I'm tired of seeing this on everybody's. I mean, whatever.
It just makes me laugh.
I don't really have an opinion, but all right. No,
not at all.
Number 8, Big. I mean, Big is just great. Tom Hanks, and just. Did he win the Oscar for that one?
I don't know. I don't think
he nominated. He was.
I don't know if he got nominated.
I think he was nominated for.
Maybe.
That one just you can't argue with it. I mean, one of the best, greatest scenes in movies was the one at FAO Schwartz with the big, keyboard thing that they were dancing on.
Absolutely.
Number 7, I mean, Return of the Jedi. You're not going to get any arguments from me with Star Wars movies.
Yeah. I had a hard time critiquing that, by the way, when I said what I said. Don't get me wrong. I do love that movie. It's number 7.
Yeah. Well, you can obviously tell that Irvin Kershner directed Empire Strikes Back and not Return of the Jedi. So, Chariots of Fire, great movie. You can't go wrong with that. That Vangelis theme, obviously iconic and cinematic, and a great story.
Two stories in one, pretty much.
Anyway, Crocodile Dundee. I mean, you can't get much more summer 80s movie than Crocodile Dundee. I mean, it's along there. It's along my choice of, Romancing the Stone. Those kind of movies all kind of seem like they came out at the same time. There's some of those movies that you could just lump all together as we're going to have an 80s movie marathon, and those are going to be it. It's just a classic. Indiana Jones' Last Crusade, great movie. Like you said, the pairing of Sean Connery in that film, and the on-screen back and forth between him and Harrison Ford was pretty good. When Sean Connery's the more outspoken actor in the scene, that's saying something because Harrison Ford is famously more deadpan as a person. Back to the Future. I mean, you think 80s, this movie comes up. I mean, it's Robert Zemeckis. It's originally the DeLorean was supposed to be a refrigerator. I'm glad they chose the DeLorean instead. And if they'd only done it 2 years earlier, they would have saved John DeLorean's company. But John DeLorean did send them a letter thanking them for using the car. But it had already failed in Northern Ireland, the company, before they chose the car. So that was kind of sad. Raiders of the Lost Ark, that one was on mine as the representative of the entire trilogy because I know how to make lists. Not just messing with you.
You're welcome.
Raiders of the Lost Ark obviously is the one that got it for everybody. I mean, that one was just like wow, and the terrible opening of the Ark scene, like whoo, nightmares of melting faces. And of course, Empire Strikes Back. I mean, my favorite of all Star Wars movies, and a lot of true, traditional Star Wars people's favorite. Irvin Kershner directed, John Williams scored it like he did all of them. I mean, just
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't get better now. Again, like some of the other movies, not necessarily about the '80s, but it was made in the '80s and like literally the start of the '80s. But yes, the '80s.
Right.
So yeah, I think your list is pretty varied. Actually, it's you had some outliers like your Secret of Nim, um, stuff I went and Stop Making Sense. I mean, it's not necessarily going to be on a lot of people's list, but it's a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's well done, Gene. I think that's a dandy little list there, buddy.
Oh, I thank you, Jason. I appreciate that.
It gets the Jason White cinematic stamp of approval.
Well, I'm sure you had the same struggle as I did. It was hard to come up with a list in the first place, but I like the challenge.
If it had been a top 100, I mean, pretty much most of your list would have been in my top 100 as well. So.
Oh, really? Well,
yeah.
I think that the reason, a couple of my reasonings here, reason Empire Strikes Back is on there as number one, I think, is because I would probably put that up there in my top 5 movies of all time. I don't know if it's number one. It's a close one, but and same thing for Raiders of the Lost Ark, perhaps.
Yeah.
There's a few things in Raiders of the Lost Ark I'm not. There's every movie has something in it that you're like, I could have taken that out. I mean, there's a few that you're not that way, but for instance, if maybe one day we'll do a top 20 of all time list of some sort. What was the name of that movie? Lawrence of Arabia would be in my top 20 movies of all time.
Yeah.
But there's things in Lawrence of Arabia that I'm not a fan of. I don't know. It's kind of like finding a perfect church, finding a perfect family. You're just not going to find it.
finding a perfect person, you're never going to find it.
No, you're not. But finding a perfect top 20 list or movie, you could critique anything in any movie just about. I suppose.
No, I mean that's what I'm saying. That's why it's like that's why it's your list and not somebody else's. Because you're just like me. You're sat there and probably going, and then you forgot movies. Probably you're like, after you change your list, you're like, well, I'm not going to change it. But
here, my honest, unbiased opinion is that your list is more interesting than mine. I think my list is a little bit more common or more predictable.
Right, but you've got some outliers, like I said, though.
Yeah. Secret of Nim would not be on most people's top 20 list.
I mean, Back to the Future wasn't even on mine.
That's true. That's why I say yours is very interesting.
It was just that was called forgetful. As much as I can remember most things, it's like that just slipped my mind for some reason. But no, I think yours has got some outliers. I mean, not a lot of people would say Chariots of Fire as an '80s movie list, even though it was made in the '80s. They just think '80s, like that '80s themed.
Right.
So. Our rules were made in the '80s, so it, that's a little different. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a good. We've just covered a good chunk of the '80s cinematically in our lists.
I think so, Jason. I know she didn't have Terms of Endearment. That's okay. It's all right. I know you didn't.
Yeah, I didn't have Heathers, and I didn't have movies like that, Working Girl, and 9 to 5. Gene, I didn't have 9 to 5. Geez,
working 9 to 5.
I didn't have Witness in there.
I like Witness actually.
Yeah, good.
Some
movie.
people may not.
More suited for Kelly McGillis to me than Top Gun. But yeah, I think I think the '80s. Main thing, like we've talked about before, I think the '80s were our decade to grow up, and we were kids in the '80s. We were kids completely in the '80s, and these will always kind of cherish because that's what you did. We went and saw movies, and you waited for those big blockbusters.
Yeah.
After 1983, you were just done with Star Wars and had to just suck it up.
I think a few episodes down the line, we should maybe do a top 20 '90s list.
Yeah, that will be an interesting list because
I don't know if we need to do every decade, but top 20s '90s list would be good, I think.
Yeah, that would be another hard one though too. It'd be a lot of Gene just wants to put she's all that on the list. I know it. But there's like so many things like, and then if you look at what's funny is that last couple years of the 90s was just like teen movie central, there was just
Yeah.
so many of those that came out. And it's hard because, like I said, Hunt for Red October was 1990, right?
Yeah, that'll be on my list. Spoiler alert.
Right. But yet it's so far different than the aforementioned She's All That and 10 Things I Hate About You, which I know actually 10 Things I Hate About You was in 2000s, wasn't it? Yeah, it was.
I didn't recall. Okay.
It just looks like a 90s movie. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like movies and music are a lot of times how I remember where I was at a certain time of my life. Like what movie was out, what music was on, If you got and folks, if you got Gene and I going on music, geez Louise, we could do a whole year's worth of podcasts and still not crack into our brains on music.
Well, we haven't done a musical one in a while, so maybe we'll do one soon.
And I don't know that we've ever done a musical list. You know what I mean?
No, we went over. I think we went over top something one time. Forgot what though.
But again, the whole point is it's your list. Your list is going to have some of the same as some other people, but it's not going to be the exact same.
Right.
Because movies are personal. Movies
well, I can tell you.
Of our lives.
I can tell you right now, one of my wife's favorite movies is an 80s movie, I think. Maybe it's really? 90s. And I've never seen it. Pretty sure Pride and Prejudice was 80s. Was it 90s?
It just depends on which one. There's so many made.
Yeah, there was some version of Pride and Prejudice that she loves, and I never saw the movie.
Probably not. That one was probably 90s.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, there's so many different movies that came out. I mean, we didn't even get into like, I don't know, strange movies like Wind in the Willows, the claymation ones. I mean, just all kinds of stuff, man.
You know what the 80s were back then in a lot of ways? That was the time of the made-for-TV movies.
Yeah, It being the most successful.
They had so many of those. They had so many dramas as well and mystery movies and things,
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of waited for those, honestly. Yeah, there's so many of those. You're right, and I remember when they first started airing movies on TV, like late at night, and you waited for those things.
Yeah,
to be on.
And
TV,
of course they had the super dumb movies of the 80s too. What I'm thinking of is Revenge of the Nerds. That was an entire trilogy. Yeah. They had Porky's,
Police Academy. Yeah,
I was about to say, what was it, like 7 or 8 Police Academy movies?
Too many. Yeah.
Short Circuit was a decent one.
Oh yeah, that was good. Yeah, that was good.
I didn't think about it, but that was a pretty good one.
Yeah, that was. I mean, Steve Guttenberg, had a couple runs, 3 Men and a Baby, and then Short Circuit, aside from Police Academy.
Man, those Police Academy movies, they just couldn't stop making them.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, but no,
that was us. I mean, we were. That was our personal thing. We had to. And then you bought VHS copies of what you loved.
This movie. One movie I'm thinking of that me and my brother actually enjoyed a lot. That came on cable a lot. Was not a kids movie. Don't let your 5-year-old watch this movie. But unless it's on TBS, because then you'll get the TV version. The Blues Brothers. We love that movie. I mean, we thought that was the greatest thing since sliced bread when we were little. I think it's because of all the blues music and, they kind of looked cool in it and everything. But
yeah, a lot of cameos in that movie too.
Oh yeah, but there's so many funny one-liners that we like, where they go through the shopping mall and they're driving around. It's like the new Oldsmobiles are in. It just me and my brother just used to crack up at that movie. He comes back and there's a lot of funny one-liners. Anyway, all right. Any other thoughts, Jason, before we head out for the day?
No, that's that. We had to do a 2-parter here because of technological difficulties. But one of these days I'll get a new computer.
Jason, I'm going to splice.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Gary. At least I didn't change hats or shirts or something. so we didn't have a continuity issue.
All right. Well, sounds good. We'll see y'all later. Thanks, everybody.